All right, let's go take a look at how do we append two or more data sets together as well as merge two or more data sets. First thing is the append. Can't be any simpler. All you need to do after the set statement is list the data sets that you want to append together. By default, SAS will just um, smash those data sets together. If you have columns in one and not the other, it doesn't matter. SAS will just create, and the output data set will have the full set of columns. One of the things that we need to do or typically need to do is actually control how the processing happens. So there's an option called in equals. It creates a Boolean value indicating which data set an observation came from. You name the identifier, in this case in1, file2, or DS3. Then you can simply reference the in equals variable as part of your conditional logic. Pretty straightforward. Merge is a little different. Merge basically says we want to interleave the data or join it together. We can use that same logic with the in equals option to control our output as well as our processing. Couple things with merge. Instead of stacking things, merge basically mashes them together. And they do that with that by variable or variables. Those things must be pre-sorted, so you typically have to do a proc sort before you do a data step merge. SAS provides this match merge style join. So it'll do, if you're familiar with SQL, it'll do inner, outer, as well as outer, or Cartesian join. You can use the reference the in equals variables that you create to control how records are matched together. So in this case, if in one and in file two, then those records are matched by that by variable. If in one and not in file two, then you'll basically say they're not matched. Pretty simple and straightforward. Let's go take a look at it in action. Okay, let's go take a look at how do we can do some appending. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull together two data sets. One's for NVIDIA stock prices, the other one's for Alteryx stock prices. We'll run this. We can look at the output for NVIDIA, and then we can look at the prices for Alteryx. Now, if I just want to append these two files together, I just do the set statement. So set NVIDIA, set Alteryx, and that will smash those two data sets together. They have the same structure. I can look at the output and see that I get a total of 1,060 observations for those two. But suppose I want to control processing. I want to assign a QSIP or a security code to the NVIDIA data and the Alteryx data. To do that, I'm going to use that in equals option. That will identify which records came from which data sets, and I'm going to create a new variable here. Basically, I'll go run that. I've created a new data set. Now, SAS doesn't do anything funky. The order that the data comes in is the order that it comes out when you append. If we go look, Alteryx came in last. Let's go back, look back at the code and look at proc freq. When I look at this, you can see that I now have the two QSIPs, Alteryx and NVIDIA, frequency 250, 810. I get my percentage, the cumulative frequency, and the cumulative percent. Okay, let's go take a look at merge. Merge is a little different. Here what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and re-import NVIDIA and Alteryx. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort both my files by date because I'm going to merge them together. We can look at the log. I sorted those, sorted Alteryx. Now, if I just do a merge with a by statement, and run that, it's going to come back and it's going to bark at me, and it's going to say there's 8 variables. And if we look at the output data set, I have no way of knowing which data came from which. You'll notice too that there were 810 observations, the same number as NVIDIA. But if I actually look at the end of the file, you'll see that the Alteryx prices start to overlap. So that's not super useful for doing that. Instead, let's go merge these guys. And to do this, we're going to rename the adjusted close price in both of them. So let's just copy that here. And then we're only going to output if they're in both. You'll notice I got 250 records. If we ignore the high, open, low, close, and volume, because those things now have gotten, smashed together, you can see I've got prices for NVIDIA, prices for Alteryx. If I go run proc means on this, on those 2 new variables that I have, I'll get a count. So both have 250 records, 250 observations in those variables, and I get a mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum for each of those. Pretty useful. Now, let's go look at how I can control processing, where I can say, do only output all of NVIDIA, and where it's not in Alteryx, so not necessarily a left join, but basically a not in query. Let's go see how that runs. And you'll see I get nothing for Alteryx, but the NVIDIA data. You'll also note that it output the dates that didn't match anything in Alteryx. Pretty useful. And then I can go run a proc means again to go verify that. 560, I got nothing for Alteryx. Okay. All right, so why don't you give it a try? First, try to do an append. Import the S&P 500, SPY, and Alteryx from our week 2 data folder. Sort by date, you can do that. Unnecessary when you're doing an append, but go ahead and sort it. Append the S&P 500 and Alteryx together, creating a new data set, daily prices, just like I did. Use a DataStep set statement and an in equals to name the security that a record came from. So if N1, then the security QSIP should be SPY. If N2, security QSIP should be Alteryx. Then use procfreak to check your results. Once you've done that, you should be able to answer these questions. How many records were in daily prices? What's the frequency and percentage of SPY? And what's the frequency and percentage of the records for Alteryx? Next, take a look at DataStep merge. Just like I did in the example earlier, use proc import to import both SPY and Alteryx from our week 2. One way to do this is to rename the adjusted close field on import. That's a useful way to do it. You can also do it at the DataStep portion. Use proc sort to sort both data sets by date. That's a prerequisite for merge. Merge by date both Alteryx and SPY into a big data set called daily prices. Only output where the observations have a date in common. This is essentially doing an inner join between SPY and Alteryx. Use proc means to verify your results. Then do a second merge. Merge the 2, Alteryx and SPY, again, but this time only output observations for SPY that aren't in common with Alteryx. And use proc means to verify your results. Once you've done this, you should be able to answer these questions. How many records in total? What's the count of in mean price of SPY versus Alteryx, where the dates are in common? And what's the count in mean price of SPY and Alteryx, where the dates are only in SPY and not in Alteryx? Here's some helpful references that you can go look at. One is the documentation on in and merge. The other one is a blog that helps you understand how SAS processes data. And then finally, there's a good paper on how to use merge from one of our pharmaceutical conferences. Good luck.